A full reopening of the Strait of Hormuz remains a top priority for the global economy. But should it remain effectively shut indefinitely, what would it take to reopen it? Would it take force? Grace Shin with this analysis.
The U.S. says it has played its part in stopping Iran from getting nuclear weapons, decimating Tehran's military and economic capabilities. But one critical choke point remains vulnerable: the Strait of Hormuz. Washington says nations that depend on Gulf oil must now secure it themselves. Even so, experts say keeping the strait open would still require U.S. military power. So, what would it take to keep the waterway open by force? First, control the air. If Iran can continue firing drones and missiles at ships, the strait remains unsafe. And analysts say the U.S. would need to neutralize those threats, targeting launch sites, air defense systems, and aircraft. That's why U.S. Central Command has deployed significant air and missile defense systems, including Patriots, THAAD, fighters, and bombers. Second, control the sea. Mine-clearing vessels would be needed to sweep shipping lanes, and Iran can deploy naval mines, which can make the route too dangerous for military and commercial traffic. Guided missile destroyers and cruisers would likely escort tankers through the strait. Special forces on small vessels could be used to counter Iran's fast attack boats, and strikes along the coastline could knock out systems threatening shipping. Around 100 merchant vessels pass through the strait daily under normal conditions. So in a crisis, warships would have to escort tankers, intercept attacks, and keep traffic moving. Now, this would be a continuous high-risk operation. Marine expeditionary units made up of around 2,500 Marines can operate from amphibious ships in the region, such as the USS Tripoli. Now, these are self-contained forces capable of launching helicopter assaults and rapid response missions at sea. The U.S. has deployed major naval assets, including an aircraft carrier strike group with more than 6,000 personnel, supported by destroyers and other warships. But it's not an easy task. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow choke point with limited room to maneuver. Iran's missile units, drones, and fast attack boats are positioned along a long and complex coastline, making them harder to detect and target. Analysts say another option is targeting none other than Kharg Island, Iran's main oil export terminal. It handles around 90% of its exports pumped in by pipeline, processing roughly 1.5 million barrels of oil a day and generating billions in revenue. Control Kharg and you effectively hold Iran's oil exports hostage. And the U.S. has already struck more than 90 military targets on the island while deliberately sparing its oil infrastructure. But such a move would come with major risks. Any attempt to seize the island would require putting troops on the ground. The U.S. has already moved forces into position in the Gulf, including Marine expeditionary units, airborne troops, and special operations forces. Around 1,500 to 2,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne Division, elite paratroopers trained to rapidly secure key infrastructure. Military estimates suggest at least 1,000 troops would be needed to capture Kharg Island. But getting them there is not that straightforward. An amphibious landing could be exposed to an attack, and airborne assault would also be risky, with the island's airstrips likely to be heavily defended. Instead, forces could probably arrive by helicopter from ships at sea, landing at multiple points to establish a foothold. And that would require fighter jets, surveillance aircraft, and attack helicopters to provide cover. Now, getting troops onto Kharg Island is only the first step. Forces would then need to clear and hold it under constant threat from Iranian counterattacks. And holding Kharg would mean defending a fixed position within range of missiles and drones from Iran's mainland. And that would require continuous air cover and missile defense, tying up significant resources. And even then, Iran could respond in other ways. It could shut off pipelines, redivert exports, or strike energy infrastructure across the region. So while Kharg Island could offer leverage, it could also draw the U.S. into a prolonged and exposed operation. So here's the bottom line. Reopening the Strait of Hormuz by force would be complex, costly, and carry real risks of escalation. For CNA Explains, I'm Grace Shin.